training around a full-time job can be a challenge. Juggling work, family and social life can be hard enough without adding training into the mix. But fortunately, we have an expert on the subject in our midst. Matt here very successfully combined work and training, including, in fact, winning the British National Road Race Champs for the majority of your career. So Matt, how about letting us in, mate, on some of the secrets?
Well, I think if you've got the desire, first off, it can be done. It just takes a little bit of self-discipline. And I think managing my time and knowing exactly what I was doing in advance worked best for me.
Okay, so what did actually underpin it all then?
Well, first up, Si, planning. The vast majority of my riding was centred around my commute. Now, back in the 90s, yeah, I know it's a long time ago, I used to ride 25 miles to work and 25 miles back. Whoa. So that was around 250 miles a week and then a race added on the top. So volume just wasn't a problem. And then a few years ago, to the back end of my career, my commute was only 5 miles or so. So I needed to either ride the turbo or bolt on a loop after work. But the one thing I did do, I knew exactly how each week was going to go and I had them all mapped out. And I also wrote down exactly what I was going to do and what I did in a diary.
Absolutely. We all know that if you write something down, you're far more likely to commit to it. And as you say, once it's there, you can also reflect on it, work out what training has been effective for you, and then do more of it. So what training was effective for you then? What did you actually do?
Well, what I made sure I did was really mix it up. The ethos of a particular week for me was to deconstruct the key elements of road cycling and work on them individually.
So we're talking threshold, sprinting, climbing, that kind of thing?
Yeah, as I had less time to train, it was a matter of working on all those elements individually and making all the sessions count. It really was a case of quality over quantity. So as well as the various disciplines like sprinting and climbing, etc., I'd work on my pedalling style, cadence. So I'd do hard sessions on a big gear of like 60 RPM, right the way through to pedaling really quickly at 120 RPM for 40 minutes. So I really did work on pedaling as well as the individual disciplines. But it's worth mentioning as well, although I did use a heart rate monitor from time to time, I didn't train to power.
No, interesting. Have you got an example of a week's training that we could have a look at?
Yep, I've got, this is going back a little bit, I'll just blow the dust out of it.
It's a 90s relic right there.
There we go. Well, a typical week would look something like this. So on a Monday, essentially normally would be a recovery day for me. Tuesday would be 1 hour hard, for example, with three 3-minute hill reps. Wednesday, I'd work on my sprinting, so it'd be a 1 hour session, a little bit of a warm up, and then 10 like 100 or 200 meter sprints. Thursday, generally I'd put a turbo session in, so 40-minute turbo session, either be intervals or like a threshold tempo session. Friday was an easy day, so I'd either just ride to work and back, say 10 miles at a very, very easy tempo, low gear, or if I felt particularly tired and was tapering towards the weekend, I'd have that day off. And Saturday, really key day, psychologically really, it was a cafe run. About 90 minutes, 45 minutes to a caf, 45 minutes back. Sunday, race day.
It's interesting actually, there are a couple of days there where you say specifically that depending on how you felt, so you did listen to your body even though you had it written down?
Yeah, I mean, this was the framework. I generally stuck to it and generally I did what was here. But as you say, sometimes if you don't feel good or if you feel particularly good, then I used to tinker my training according. But generally, this was the template.
Yeah. That doesn't sound too onerous then, does it? That's a training framework we could all use.
No, definitely. Although I did mix it around a little bit, and especially during the dark winter months, I'd used to do a lot more turbo sessions and also just on the approach to the season, just to hone the form. But you will notice that each week there's a definite taper, and back at, in the mid to back end of the 90s there was a lot of talk, especially through British cycling, where they essentially championed the taper. So I put that into my week. So Friday and Saturday, very, very easy, restful kind of days, so you're nice and fresh, and that worked for me.
Yeah. So factoring in a race then and 3 to 4 hours on a Sunday, you're probably only doing what, 7 to 10 hours a week? Which doesn't really sound like very much.
No, not really, but basically there was hardly any slack at all. So every time I rode my bike, I made it count, and the sessions were generally quite hard. And the only easy rides were basically the recovery ride and the ride to the cafe. Cut my leg over a bike, there was some sort of intensity, so there isn't any slack. I couldn't afford there to be. Cut my leg over a bike doesn't sound right. It swung my leg over a bike.
I could just see Dad's face. Just in the background.
It swung. You don't cock your leg over a bike.
one thing I am thinking, if you're only doing 7 to 10 hours a week, where's your endurance coming from?
It's a really good point, and I didn't actually work on my endurance specifically until the back end of my career. But what I did do, rather than have a rest day on the Monday, we'd go easy, I'd race on the Sunday, and then Monday would be another hard day, so I'd do like maybe an hour and a half after work, quite intense, and then still keep Tuesday and Wednesday hard, so that effectively built a really hard block. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is essentially a block of 3 or 4 really hard days.
And then what, you'd have Thursday easy and basically make your taper longer?
Exactly, so you essentially swap out the rest days. You'd have easy day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so a definite taper, but a more intense blocked period of endurance work. And it really, really worked well for me.
Yeah, that's a really good idea actually. So what are the other factors then that helped?
Rest and recovery. Yeah, this is absolutely crucial. You can't even begin to train if your body and your mind are jaded. So it's like being honest with yourself. And as my career progressed, I increasingly understood how I felt, and I wasn't afraid, whereas previously when I was young I wasn't afraid to take a day off. And it doesn't mean you have to take a day off if you're feeling tired. You could just, rather than doing an interval session, which can strike fear into the hearts of many, is basically go out, pedal easy, and just enjoy your riding until you get that enthusiasm back.
Yeah, I distinctly remember when you were my team manager recommending from time to time that I have a couple of easy days if I was getting stale or something.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with sticking to a program, but there has to be flexibility built within it, and you weren't the only one, Si. After, especially midway through the season when you've got a lot of racing in your legs, guys would say, I'm just not going well at the moment, and generally it wasn't anything else apart from a little bit of fatigue, mental and physical. Take a couple of days off and generally you're as right as rain.
So, the key things to consider then, plan your training and keep a diary. Get variability into your training so you don't get stuck in a rut, and then make sure you get enough rest. So don't be afraid to take a day off.
Yeah, and make sure you focus your training. So make sure you identify your objectives and train specifically for those objectives, basically. Your time is really valuable, so really make it count. And also, try and get a cafe running once a week too. It's good for the soul and good for the morale.
If you're looking to peak as well, you probably want to up that to 2.
Definitely, good point. Good point.
Now, commuting was the subject earlier on. If you want to see a great video about our commuter challenge, then why not click up there and you can get straight through to it.
Yeah, and if you want to see how to stay healthy, got top 10 tips just down here.
Yeah, don't forget as well, you need to subscribe to GCN as well if you really want to get your work-life balance correct. And make sure you give the video a thumbs up as well, particularly because Matt was British National Road Race Champion whilst working full time. If that doesn't need a thumbs up, I do not know what does.
Thanks very much.
Chapeau, Matt.
Cheers, bud.
It's all right.